Trayvon Martin, a name and a face that only a few months ago no one knew outside of family and friends. Well, today, he's the poster child for all the problems associated with what has now been known as the Stand Your Ground law, and it has become a clarion call for serious conversations, real conversations about race and the different perceptions of it in America. And I want to bring in Andrew Whitman, who's in first position right now at the very latest on what's becoming some serious simmering tensions all surrounding Trayvon's death.
That's correct, Rich. Thousands of demonstrators across the country have been rallying, calling for justice for Trayvon. But his parents were on the defensive today after new unflattering information was leaked about their son. Sanford seethed overnight. Justice! Thousands of demonstrators demanding the arrest of the man who killed Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman, and his parents unwavering in their plea for justice.
He needs to be given a sentence by a jury of his peers. We're not asking for an eye, we're asking for justice, justice, justice.
But a barrage of new details is now putting the family on the defensive.
They've killed my son, and now they're trying to kill his reputation.
Trayvon Martin had been suspended from his Miami high school that week, traces of marijuana discovered in his backpack. And new details from Zimmerman's original statement to police, offering a different account of who first escalated things that night.
Are you following him? Yeah. Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Zimmerman followed Martin anyway. His friend, Joe Oliver, who spoke to Zimmerman late Tuesday, said that after Zimmerman followed Martin for a while, he lost the 17-year-old, so he headed back to his car when suddenly
Trayvon came up behind George and asked him what was going on, if he had a problem. And after George responded, "No, I don't have a problem," as he reached for his phone, that's when Trayvon cold-cocked him,
reportedly breaking Zimmerman's nose and repeatedly slamming his head on the ground. This eyewitness, who did not want to be shown on camera, saw Martin on top of Zimmerman.
The guy on the bottom was yelling to me, "Help, help." And I told him to stop, and I was calling 911.
And for the first time, we learned Martin was shot from extremely close range.
He didn't step back, and that's about all I can say.
Trayvon Martin's parents and their attorney were on Capitol Hill today. They attended a forum on racial profiling, hate crimes, and the now infamous Stand Your Ground law. That forum was sponsored by Democratic members of the House Judiciary Committee. A grand jury is set to convene next month to decide whether Zimmerman should face charges. Rich?
All right, Andrew, thank you very much here. And we're going to bring our panel in a little bit, but first I want to bring in a guest to talk about Trayvon Martin, as well as the real issue of really what was underlying, whether it was that night here, certainly in Florida, or what we've talked about so much in the last few weeks, and that is race in America. And Reverend Edward Mulrain, pastor of the Unity Baptist Tabernacle Church, and he's also a professor at the New York Theological Seminary. He's kind enough to join us. Reverend, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, obviously I can see it was a little chilly out, but you're still wearing a hoodie for a purpose here, and that's a message. And we saw this played out really across the country this past weekend. We saw that photo that was tweeted from Miami Heat, and so many others followed suit. What's the message behind the hoodie?
I think that the basic message is that you want to change the perception. The perception right now is that any young black man wearing a hoodie is a hoodlum, and that they deserve to be followed, and unfortunately, in Trayvon's case, they deserve to be shot. I think that what's going on around the nation is that we have to change the perception, the image that comes along with young black men in hoods, and pastors from around the country preaching it on Sunday, women, men, white, black, just joining in this call to say that you can wear a hoodie and it doesn't mean that you're a hoodlum and that you're out to rob and steal and kill somebody. But just like any other person wearing a hoodie, whether they be white or Asian, a black young man should be able to wear that hoodie and still feel secure in his community or any community.
What were the conversations like in church before and after the sermon? What were people saying to you, parents, kids themselves? They angry right now? They frustrated? They're disappointed. Tell me what's going on.
I would say the overall feeling is that of sadness. The emotions are coming through clearly, that one really feels like this shouldn't have happened. In my church, and I'm sure many churches across the nation, there are a lot of young women and families with young men, and they feel a sense of connection to Trayvon, knowing that their son could have been Trayvon. And I think that the overwhelmingness is sadness, and that something needs to be done, and that there's a considerable lack of injustice at the point, and which is turning into anger. But I think people are trying to connect more with the family and the sadness and the grief that's going along with it. So you can find that throughout the nation.
I was talking with someone, and the general thing was, Reverend, that if you and I both had sons, teenage sons, and 11 o'clock at night, they were walking in a gated community of which they lived, there might be two different realities what might happen to them that night. Is that just the plain honest truth? No, you're absolutely right. I mean, if we two sons and two different colors, there's the perception is still there. No matter what community they're in, there's a perception that if it's a white young man, that he's all right. If it's a black young man, that he may be dangerous and that he may be trying to rob the community and rob the neighborhood. And it's unfortunate that even in today, with a black president of the United States of America, that we still have these perception of our young black men. And it's really making it hard for races to come together, or rather, I should say that it's making it easier for races to come together when incidents like this happen, because people need to realize and see that there's still an extreme amount of racism perception in this country that needs to be dealt with. And Trayvon is almost looked at as a sacrifice so that the nation can wake up. Now you have presidents responding to it. You have the president of the United States. We're going to talk about it in a minute if people will bring a table in if that was the president's role or not. But have you ever gotten the talk or given the talk to another young, probably African-American, either young boy or gotten it when you were young, about what to do when approached, when to run, when not to run, holding something, what you're wearing, etc.? I think I should have gotten the talk, but I don't think that I received the talk. I probably gotten it, but didn't receive it. There's certain explain
times.
to our audience what everybody calls the talk here that we learned really through the Trayvon Martin
The talk is basically that when you encounter a police officer, that you should do your best to try to remain silent, try to just be obedient, go along with the situation, and hopefully do not escalate the situation. I know that I talked to a lot of young men, even in church this week. We prayed and we talked to them about how you ought to interact when you come into contact with a police officer. And hopefully it sticks with them. The reason why I say possibly some may not receive it, because they may not really understand, except for with this situation, just exactly how dangerous it could be if you escalate or if the problem is escalated.
We were joined by a former prosecutor last night, and I've talked to other prosecutors about this case, and because of the law in the books in Florida, it's not going to be a slam dunk that there's going to be a prosecution if, in fact, Mr. Zimmerman even gets charged, let alone we'll ever see the inside of a cell. If Zimmerman walks free, we have some real problems in this country?
I think so. I think you already have real problems in this country. I think that when you look at the situation...
you see that anger escalating here where people say a kid 100 yards from his front door with Skittles and a drink in his pocket, shot dead, and the only one who was either tested for substances was the kid, and the only one, and nobody ever spent a night in jail.
Right, and you have already serious questions being raised. Just with the information that we receive, a lot of it, of course, we can't jump to conclusions in terms of what actually happened, but I think that many are, even on Zimmerman's side, trying to jump to conclusion about what they believe to happen. But I think that you already have a serious problem in this country with race. You have a serious problem in this country when it comes to this particular situation. And if Zimmerman is let off, I think that this is going to escalate not only the conversation but the disruption of race in this nation. And I think that they would be the justices and everybody else would be real wise to look clearly into this case on every level to make sure that justice is served.